Good day. So this will be a quick run through on how the damage modeling is set up for vehicles for Digital Combat Simulator. I'll do the best to show you guys how to do this, and if you still have questions at the end, please feel free to ask. Alright, so to begin, DCS uses two types of textures that are driven by argument numbers. And I'll show you how this works here right now, just so you get an idea. So as the argument is taking damage in the game, you can start seeing things appear on the mesh, such as holes. And as you go further, more holes appear. And also scratches. And more holes. Until eventually a part can fall off and expose the insides of stuff or other damaged items, such as this guide wire that holds the wing. So if we go back to argument keyframe 0, you can see it looks normal, and as we continue on, it shows damage. So not only can the argument control the textures, you can control the object's visibility. And so as I mentioned before, the two types of textures, the color map and the volumetric texture. The color map is what will show on top of the other texture, depending on what you have in the volumetric texture. The volumetric texture is made up of 4 textures based on how much damage is being shown. And it's always 4 textures. So the first texture will be light damage. This could be scratches, small holes or no holes, paint chips, wood chips. The second one, medium damage, more holes, more paint chips, oil stains, whatnot. The third one, this is where the large holes come in, parts falling off, the framework, anything inside an object could be shown. And finally the last one, which is the critical damage, the worst damage you could think of. So the argument number in the game controls this automatically as damage has occurred. And this volumetric texture is the mask, the alpha mask for the color map. So the color white is a complete hole. Anything 80% of white, such as gray, will not be a hole, but it will allow the color to show from the color map. Of course, this is the color map that I've made for this aircraft, where you can see the wood and the metal underneath as it gets scratched. Now, the color map doesn't just have to be the materials that the object is made of. You can also add bullet holes and actual rips in fabric and other things, anything you want. So, for instance, on the Corsair that I'm working on, I added actual damage of the bullet holes. So the black part, that's where my hole is going to be. But I added the metal that surrounds it. So you could do stuff like that, or you could add the fabric. Bullet holes with the surrounding gray chipped paint. Pretty simple. Of course, the corresponding damage. Oh, here we go. For the volumetric texture, you can see where I have it light gray, or yes, gray on the outside and white in the middle. That way, so the edges will still show as if they were burnt or ripped. Okay, so to get your alpha mask textures into a volumetric texture, we need to use Dynamics Text Archiver. Once you get the program, just simply unzip it to any folder you want. And let's see, start the program. And we want to go to Edit, create volumetric texture. And then you want to select your images wherever they may be. Let's see, where do I have these? I'll just so select your 4. Okay. Now you can give your volumetric texture a name for the output. It could be whatever you want. Preferably the object name. Let's say CE2 underscore damage. Whatever. Keep the format to auto. No bitmaps. And once that's done, where's it at? F6. You want to push F6 and pack. This could take a while depending on the size of the texture. But once it's complete, it'll create a zip file within the text archiver folder. So all you have to do is go ahead and unzip the file. It'll be this right here. Then you can just take your file and put it with the other textures of the model. Implementing the textures into DCS is fairly simple. There's not much to it. And to do this, we'll go ahead and open up the material editor. And this looks like a jargon, but it's pretty simple. So the material is set up where the diffuse color has a composite map, 4-layer composite, where the 4th layer is for damage model, or the color map, excuse me, it's for the color map. Layer 1 is for the albedo or diffuse texture. So once you get that set up, you go ahead and put your color map into layer 4, and you're done there. Now, it's not required, but it will give the model more detail. You can add an extra bump map to the model, specifically for the damage. And for that to happen, you need to also add a 2-layer composite map to the bump slot. The first layer is for diffuse, and the second layer is for damage. And the bump map for the damage will only be the holes and the rips and stuff. Nothing else. None of the extra details such as bent metal and rivets and whatnot. So once that's set up, you're done. It's simple. Now for the volumetric texture, you don't have to assign it anywhere. It'll be automatically read by the game engine. And as a note, there's no support for any roughness metallic textures for the damage text or for the color map yet. It's just not supported yet. Let's see, is there anything else I'm missing? I think that's it about that part. Let me show you what it looks like on the model, at least. So I'll go to this composite map and I will disable the view and show this one. And as you can see, I try to match up the framework and parts of it to the model itself. The second part for damage modeling are the objects that are physically damaged that you want to show, such as bent parts or parts that become visible because there's a hole there and you can see through the hole. And this is another easy thing. It's not hard. Now you can't see the object here, but it's invisible. I'll go to wire view and you'll see it. There it is. These guide wires, and then the bent guide wires after the damage. So I'm going to select these two, a damaged one and a normal one. I'll isolate these and go back to a regular view here. Somehow. There we go. Okay. So for the regular object, you want to add a visibility argument. Go to Edit, Visibility Track, Add arg-based visibility. So let me do that real quick. Add let me start over here. So go to Edit, Visibility Track, Add, and we'll have to do it again. This time arg-based visibility, add what you want, change the number. Okay, and since this is the main object, at keyframe 0, the value must be 1. So it'll be visible in the game. Then we go all the way to keyframe 100 and make it 0. So when it hits critical damage, it'll turn invisible, allowing the other part to become visible. So then we'll click on the damage part, the one that's going to show up after you hit critical damage. Basically, you do the same thing, except this time, at keyframe 0, the value will be 0. And at keyframe 100, the value will be 1. So when you go to 1, the part shows up. And when it's at 0, it's off. So let me fix this one here. And you'll see what I mean. So at 0, undamaged part. 100, damage part. Really simple. Now the game engine uses a separate EDM file for collision, as we call the collision file. It's made up of collision shells and collision lines. You have the shells here and the lines. The shells, as I like to call the collision shells, are used to register bullet hits, missile hits, any kind of weapons that are shot at it. And the collision lines are used to register hitting objects such as buildings, trees, the ground. And the collision shells are very low poly objects based off the general shape of the main model, cut up into sections. Each section will receive different types of damage. The collision lines will follow suit. The general shape or the outline, usually the edges of the object. Very simple. For collision lines, you got to use as few segments as possible. The more segments there are, the lower the FPS will be for the user. So try to use as less as you can. Now for these shapes and lines, they require an object properties definition. for shells, it's type collision, or type equals quotation collision underscore shell quotation semicolon, as seen here. The collision lines are very similar. Instead of collision shell, it's collision line. So now that's set up. For the shells, they will inherit the argument numbers as the same as the main model. So let's say for the wing here, on the main model it was 227 for the argument number to make it disappear. And it'll be the same for the collision model, or the collision shell, as we got here. So go to 227 just to demonstrate it real quick. And it should disappear. Yeah, it disappears. The collision line will be linked. You have to link the collision line to the collision shell. That way the line will also disappear. Let's see what else. Ah, yes. The collision shell and the collision line must be the same name in all caps with underscores, no spaces, no special characters. So the shell, or the line here, is wing underscore line underscore out. The shell will be the exact same name, wing underscore L underscore out. And this goes for all the objects that you create for it. As I mentioned earlier about the argument numbers inheriting the main model, this also includes animations. So if you have a wheel that rotates or an antenna that rotates, it'll be the exact same thing in the collision model. And the collision line will follow suit as long as it's linked to it. I believe that would be it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me. I hope this has been helpful. Have a good day.